The Story of Christmas, Part 5, Singing and Santa Claus. At Christmas we share the light, and it blazes through the window in our homes to remind all strangers and passerbys that the light of our soul is strong in this time of solemn celebration. Music has long been associated with the Christmas season, but the early chants, litanies, and hymns written in Latin were hardly suitable for secular use. And according to legend, the Gloria in Excelsis, the hymn supposedly sung by the angels on the occasion of Christ's nativity, was the first Christmas carol. It is believed that the songs in the popular languages, and with simple but reverent wordings, were introduced by St. Francis of Assisi, who desired to bring the Christmas mystery closer to the lives of the people. Carol singing spread slowly but surely throughout Europe. It became customary for troubadours and minstrels to contribute their services to the joy of the holiday season. Secular singing of Christmas folk songs gained special favor in England. Choral groups sang in the streets and outside the houses of friends and relatives, and in a subtle way, these singers, like the angels of old, brought the good tidings of great joy. It is surely a pity that so gracious a custom has failed among us. There is something really lacking when we are satisfied merely to turn on a photograph or listen to the radio. We lose the pleasure of the many rehearsals, the planning and preparing, and most of all, the direct action of singing together those simple melodies which, coming from the heart, convey their message to the expectant ears. If we can sing and work and play together, we can live together with quicker sympathy and kindlier attitudes. Singing Christmas songs with a congenial group helps to create and sustain the mood of the season. The sacred songs remind us of the solemnity of the occasion and its great meaning as the spiritual mystery. The secular melodies contribute to that happy spirit of the occasion, inspiring good fellowship and cheer. Music is a universal language, and whether or not we understand the words, we feel the spirit behind them, and faith and hope glow a little brighter in our hearts. We have previously mentioned that our ancestors became boisterous at times and developed a number of more or less secular devices and amusements. Mumming was often an important feature of the Christmas festivities. The word mummer means a masker, and this custom seems to be traceable to the ancient Roman Saturnalia. Originally, mumming consisted of men and women exchanging their clothing and thus disguised, going from one neighbor's house to another. By degrees, various costumes were introduced, as well as masks with fantastic expressions. This custom is related to the rights of the stranger at the Christmas season. It was assumed that during the celebration, the door was open to anyone seeking food or shelter, was made welcome in the name of the Christ child. In these days, of course, strangers were few in the little villages and towns, and the ritual could not often be exercised. It was therefore permissible for neighbors and relatives to conceal their identity and play the parts of strangers. They were not supposed to be recognized, but were made welcome and invited to share in the festivities. In the very ancient pagan world, there was the belief that gods and godlings might visit the earth disguised as mortals, and it would be a serious oversight if they were not made welcome and permitted to share the common bounty. So, Christmas became a time of open house, for perhaps the very spirit of Christ might enter in some unfamiliar likeness. Mumming was also considered symbolic of the visit of the Magi to Bethlehem. In the year 1377, citizens of the city of London, to the number of 130, variously and elaborately disguised, paid homage to the young Prince Richard, son of the Black Prince. These mummers, dressed in royal and noble raiment and mounted on fine horses, apparently reenacted the visit of the Magi, or the Gentiles who came to honor Christ. Some of them blackened their faces with burnt cork to signify Asiatic or African peoples. They set 3 jewels before the young prince, consisting of a golden bowl, a cup, and a ring of the same metal. By this pageant the Londoners fulfilled the ancient promise that before the feet of the Holy Child all men should kneel and all nations should give homage. Among the Christmas traditions said to have been introduced by St. Francis of Assisi is the crèche, or the nativity scene, usually found in Latin churches. The birth of Christ is represented by small figurines artistically arranged in a setting which resembles the stable at Bethlehem. There are statues or figures of the Holy Family, the shepherds, angels, and often 3 wise men. These are surrounded by statuettes of cattle and of sheep, and over all hovers the Star of Bethlehem. Many of these nativity scenes are beautifully contrived and help to emphasize the occurrences associated religiously with Christmas Eve. Such vivid reconstructions were especially useful in those days when men could neither read nor write, and where religion was often presented to them by miracle plays enacted on the broad squares before the cathedrals. Like music, these depictions transcend language barriers and nourish the reverence which men like to feel and to express on sacred occasions. We have already previously mentioned the peculiar veneration in which mistletoe was held by the British Druids. We are not surprised, therefore, to find that it has descended among the many English customs associated with the Christmas season. The mistletoe is a parasitic plant which attaches itself to the trees with great tenacity and generally lives as long as the tree itself survives. In Germany, the word for mistletoe signified all heal, and the plant was held to possess mystical and magical virtues. The ancients believed that mistletoe was nourished by the air and light, and by the rays of the moon. When it was cut, it must never touch the earth, or its powers would be destroyed. There has long been a religious symbolism relating to this plant, which may have been derived from the idea that it symbolized the impermanent relationship between the body and the soul. And like the soul, the mistletoe is attached to a body, but it has a separate existence in space. It also receives into itself strange energies and forces moving in the air. The presence of mistletoe in our homes, of our ancient forebears, was considered as a benediction, and if true lovers stood beneath its branches, it brought good fortune. This is one of the most beautiful of the old Christmas customs, devoutly religious in its original meaning. It would be no exaggeration to say, to stand under the mistletoe means actually to stand under the wing of the Holy Spirit of life, or to accept the guardianship of the power of the soul. No discussion of Christmas could be complete without mentioning Santa Claus. The name is said to be an American colonial corruption of the Dutch Saint Nicholas. Historically, the man that we remember as Saint Nicholas was born in Caprara in Lycia, and although a layman, he was made Bishop of Myra because of his exceptional piety. He is said to have died in 343 AD, and in Christian art he is usually represented in episcopal robes accompanied by 3 purses and 3 children. From his earliest years, the saint particularly venerated the Christ child, and he practiced throughout his life the childlike virtues of meekness and humility of spirit. And because he performed all his good works in the name of the infant Jesus, children were taught to regard him as their patron saint. He also gained distinction as a protector of the innocence and morality. There is a legend that the good Saint Nicholas gladdened the hearts of the 3 poor girls who wished to be honorably married by secretly throwing purses of money into the window of their home so that they could have a suitable dowry. This is why 3 purses have come to be his particular symbol. On many other occasions, he also provided for the distressed, but he always arranged his gifts so that no one would know the source. If he was asked, he would say very quietly and sincerely that Christ was the true giver of all gifts. In memory of this saint's anonymous philanthropy, mothers concealed apples, nuts, pears, sometimes clothing, shoes, and hats in their children's room on St. Nicholas Eve. And when the morning came, the presents were discovered. They would follow the holy man's example and simply say that St. Nicholas had brought them. It was an early custom to hide such presents in the shoes and slippers so that the children would find them when they got dressed. Average folks did not have stockings at this time, but when these became customary, there were no objections because stockings hold considerably more than shoes. Incidentally, St. Nicholas was usually pictured as a portly man with kindly expression and a very long white beard. It is possible that familiar costume in which we represent him was originally intended for vestments, but by degrees these were modified to a more secular apparel. There are other elements which have contributed to the Santa Claus legend. Among the ancient Egyptians, there was a rotund and an amiable deity named Bes, a gnome-like figure who was also regarded as the patron of the little children. This god lived with the other deities at the North Pole, supposed to have labored industriously throughout the year, making dolls and toys for the boys and girls who were good and obedient. He could travel invisibly through space and had a wonderful way of knowing the virtues and faults of the children that he visited. St. Nicholas seems to have been first adopted officially as the patron of children in the Netherlands. On St. Nicholas Eve, the little folks leave their wooden shoes filled with hay for the horse which the good saint rides when he jumps from roof to roof, leaving toys and sweetmeats. As Christmas falls in winter, the snowy season in the northern hemisphere, St. Nicholas appears warmly clothed and accompanied by symbols dear to the hearts of our Nordic ancestors. His reindeer originated in the old rites of Odin and Balder. In the southern hemisphere, where Christmas falls in midsummer, Santa Claus is also a favorite. He arrives as usual in his sleigh, accompanied by artificial snow and much gaiety. There's some talk these days that the delusionment about Santa Claus has a disturbing effect on the psyche of the modern child. The little ones are supposed to lose faith in human nature when they finally discover that St. Nicholas is a spirit rather than a person. There is some question, however, as to whether such a neuroses is due to a kindly and beautiful legend or results from what we so glibly call, quote, a factual attitude toward life, end quote. When we lose the child heart, the heart of simple faith and joy, we have no defense against the neuroses or any of the melancholy evils which follow upon poverty of the spirit. The long tradition about St. Nicholas has invested him with a kind of psychic reality. He is one part of our own natures, having a real and factual existence in the world of thought. As he was a kindly man who loved children and wished to bring them happiness, we perpetuate his story by gifts given in his name and in his memory. He is not a god of merchants, but in a strange way he is associated with the Christ mystery. The Master loved the little ones and gathered them about him and told his disciples that of such as these was the kingdom of heaven. By degrees children can come to know that Santa Claus lives in their own hearts as the splendid impulse to give and to share. When we buy expensive gifts for our friends, we gain a kind of selfish satisfaction. We like to be known for our generosities. St. Nicholas, however, preferred to remain unknown, and the philosophy of it all is very simple. Every day we live, the heavens and the earth bestow their benefits, but these are not proclaimed, and by degrees we take them for granted. Eternal life itself is the ever-anonymous giver. Whatever we may do that is kindly or charitable is not of ourselves, but of the Spirit in us, which, as St. Paul says, quote, doeth the works, end quote. Behind all giving is one giver, worshipped of old as the sovereign Son, and today as the mystery of Christ. Like St. Nicholas, we are the servants of a spirit of giving, and it is not always wise that the left hand should know what the right hand doeth. And that concludes part 5. Please watch the playlist for the 6th and final part, or you could just wait until Christmas Day, where I'll have all of the videos stitched together and uploaded as a complete book. So until then, love yourselves and love each other unconditionally, without conditions. Love.